एक दिन थियो फ्राइडे June 1st, 2001.
There was a custom in the royal household that every Friday they would have a get-together.
किनभने मेरो जो एउटा सोर्स जो थियो त्यो चाहिँ राजाको ऊ चाहिँ एडिसी को रूपमा प्यालेसमा काम गरिसकेको थियो उसले मलाई अराउन्ड म घरमै थिएँ 10 बजेतिर राति उसले मलाई फोन गर्यो एउटा कुरा के थियो भने त्यहाँ गोली चल्यो प्यालेसभित्र राजाको डेथ भयो
According to the official version of events, the crown prince, who was having some issues with his parents, got drunk, killed his entire family, and committed suicide.
त्यति बेला केओसको स्थिति थियो
So this 2001 Palace massacre was a big turning point for our movement and for Nepalese history.
Well, from a very young age, I took interest in global developments. And during my high school years, I was active as president of a current events club and Model UN, working in the Department of Political Affairs at the UN. I took a very keen interest in the work that the UN were doing to help resolve conflicts around the world. I believe the palace massacre that took place in 2001 drew closer attention to Nepal from the international community and also drew greater attention to the conflict that was ongoing and causing a lot of suffering and death. There was an increasing realization in the UN that the conflict was becoming untenable. The UN needed to do something about this growing conflict. The time I arrived on my first visit, which was in August 2003, this was a period when there were really two dimensions to the crisis in the country. On the one hand, the king, his relationship with the political parties was deteriorating. The king was really encroaching into the prerogatives of the political leadership, the government, despite his generally constitutional status as a monarch. On the other hand, you had the Maoist insurgency, which was fighting the established elected political parties, but also the king and the monarchy.
I was raised in a rural background. Naturally, in the rural areas, poverty, unemployment, illiteracy was rampant. But as I happened to be a bright student, I won a scholarship to go for higher studies.
Baburam Bhattarai, he had a reputation for being a brilliant student. He had topped the country in the standardized test that we take at grade 10.
I went for my PhD in New Delhi. My topic of the thesis was why Nepal was underdeveloped. I realized till the 18th century, Nepal and other countries were almost at the same level. Then countries modernized themselves, but in Nepal, we had a continued rule of the monarchy. I came to the conclusion, unless you have democratic revolution in your country, the country cannot be developed. When I came back to Nepal, then we organized a Nepal Communist Party, Maoist, with comrades like Prasanda, who was my own batchmate. Our idea was, unless monarchy is abolished, there cannot be full democracy. Without full democracy, we can't develop. The first stage for development is political revolution. You have to focus on peasants in the rural areas. Then when you gain your strength, then only you capture the cities.
हामीले दुईटै बाटो कि हामीले सेनालाई पनि हाम्रो सैनिक पङ्क्तिलाई पनि हामीले सुदृढ गर्नुपर्ने, हामीले सैनिक पङ्क्तिलाई आफ्नो ठाउँमा मजबुत बनाउनु पर्ने।
And we want to organize the people who are at the bottom, the poor peasants and women.
कमरेडहरू हामीले 60वटा झन्डा र 60वटा दियो बालेर हाम्रो शिविरको उद्घाटन गरेका छौँ।
In Nepal's case, there are Dalit so-called untouchables caste. So our party and the front organization used to gather them and tell them what are the problems, why you are poor, why you are oppressed.
हाम्रो सामु नयाँ नयाँ चुनौतीहरूको दिवारहरू तिर्सिएका छन्।
The Maoists were able to use the rhetoric that the state has not done anything for that group of people and promise them a much better future under a potential Maoist government.
माओवादीको बारेमा चाहिँ पहिले बुवा जनमोर्चा हुनुहुन्थ्यो, बुवा राजनीतिक पार्टीमा आबद्ध हुनुहुन्थ्यो। क्रान्तिकारी गीतहरूमा हामी सानैदेखि सुन्ने होइन, सँगसँगै गाउने नाच्ने गर्थ्यौँ र राजनीतिक कुरा चाहिँ गर्नुहुन्थ्यो। हामी चाहिँ न्यायको लागि लडेको होइन, देशको लागि लडेको भन्ने यस्तो कुराहरू चाहिँ गर्नुहुन्थ्यो।
1990 to 1996, that was a preparatory phase for us.
In February 1996, the Maoists presented a list of 40 demands to the Prime Minister of Nepal, saying that if these demands were not fulfilled by a certain date, they would be forced to take up arms against the state.
Nepal was still a Hindu monarchical state. We should abolish the monarchy and the nature of the state should be changed into a secular state. We should have a land reform and we should develop our industries and education and health should be free for all. Those demands could be fulfilled only after making a new constitution through a constituent assembly.
Till then, we had already seen 4 constitutions, and each constitution was drafted by a committee which is handpicked by whoever. Whether it's the king or political parties, it is handpicked. Our Constituent Assembly is elected by the people, and the people's representatives go and write a constitution. So the argument is that an assembly elected by the people is a sovereign body which should have much more legitimacy in writing the constitution. The Prime Minister, instead of heeding the letter, he went on a visit to India.
The government reaction was they didn't do anything. Government felt that their organizations was very small and there is no need to bother.
We knew it, they won't fulfill it because the government was so weak.
4 days before the deadline had expired, they started their war.
So these are some of the documents of our underground days, and these notes are made to give classes to cadres in different underground areas. It was difficult to carry books everywhere, so we make little notes. One focused on military affairs, another focused on political economy.
त्यसरी सातो बनाइदियो भनेको हामीलाई याद छ। मेरो बुवाले भन्नुहुन्थ्यो कि अब मेरो मम्मीलाई, बुढी अब म भूमिगत हुँदैछु देश र जनताको निम्ति हैन, यो परिवर्तनको निम्ति। अब हामी जङ्गलमा बस्छौँ, हामी खाना पाउँदैनौँ, मलाई सातो पिन्दे हैन, अब चाहिँ त्यो सातोमा अलिकति नुन हाल्देऊ। बुवा 52 साल फागुन 1 गतेबाट चाहिँ सिन्धुली जिल्लाको गढी चौकी कब्जा गरेर भूमिगत हुनुभयो।
The first wave attacks happened in this place called Rolpa, in Gorkha, and in Sindhuli.
1996, I was in the army. I was a general, and the Maoists had started attacking the police posts with their, country-made weapons.
Every attack on a police station, they're also snatching their weapons. So they built their armory from weapons they seized or snatched from the police.
Our demand was from the very beginning was Republican democracy. My idea was, if the king agrees to abolish the monarchy and go for a republican form of state, we can accept him as the first president of the republic.
I had no sympathy, nothing. By killing people, by looting banks, murdering police, it's not democracy.
The government of the day thought that it was a law and order situation and the police was strong enough to deal with this.
But over the months, things escalated.
The army had made some assessment that this is an insurgency and army should be drawn in.
Everybody was for military solution to finish the Maoist. But we from civil society, we did not want that. We wanted a peaceful solution. For the last 3 decades, I was all the time engaged in as political activist, freedom fighter, human rights activist. I serve for the rights of the people. I started traveling all over the country, even went to their hideouts, appealing to the Maoists. There is no option but peace talk, peace talk, peace talk with the government.
2001 is a very crucial year for our movement and for Nepalese history. I got a phone call from a friend. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and that person told me, "Do you know this happened? There is a palace massacre." Then we decided then this could be favorable for our revolution. Now since the legitimate monarchy is gone, whatever monarchy will be easier to fight against it.
After the massacre, the previous king's second brother became king. The new king was someone called Gyanendra.
The new king was not popular among the people, didn't have good image. There also he was a businessman, and he was suspected to be involved in various corrupt practices. So we seized that opportunity, we shifted our strategy, then we extended our hands to the political parties and called them to join hands with us and fight against the fake monarchy.
They called me through my friend to act as facilitator. They could believe in my integrity because I was a peacemaker or negotiator.
पहिलो चरणको कुराकानी हुँदाखेरि त त्यो धेरै मान्छेहरू होपफुल थियो पिस आउन सक्छ भन्ने.
But in the meantime, we came to know, while sitting and talked, the Maoists had the hidden motive.
शान्ति वार्ता हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ अब शान्ति प्रक्रियाबाटै अगाडि बढ्नु पाए हुन्थ्यो हैन. अब मान्छे नमर्दै हुन्थ्यो, हामी पनि मर्न नपरे हुन्थ्यो, हामीले पनि मार्न नपरे हुन्थ्यो, अब जो मरे पनि नेपाली नै मरिरहेछ भन्ने फिल चाहिँ हुन्थ्यो.
पहिलो चरणको कुराकानी हुँदाखेरि त त्यो धेरै मान्छेहरू होपफुल थियो पिस आउन सक्छ भन्ने. तर त्यो एक ढङ्गले आइस ब्रेक गर्ने मात्रै थियो.
But without warning, in November 2001, the Maoists attacked. This time they attacked the army.
We wanted to have that opportunity of negotiation, peace talks, but we didn't have much hope.
That was a camouflage agent. Maoists use the peace talks to increase their strength. That is a fact. There is no doubt about it.
So first we concentrated our attacks on the police force. Most of the police force were chased away or wiped out from the countryside. Now the army was the last tool of the state.
the Maoists decided to attack the barrack and seize the arms in the barrack.
Very successfully we attacked, and we made a huge capture of arms and ammunition from the army.
The first time, the Maoists also had machine guns, they had rockets, they had grenades, all they took from the army. Before that, they had only the weaponry they could take from the police.
I was deployed in the hardcore Maoist area, the birthplace of Maoist, and every day our helicopters would bring in dead bodies, soldiers, policemen, or the armed police force. Somebody asked me, Gorkhas are the best soldiers of the world, why couldn't you eliminate the insurgents? What stopped you? We thought you were strong enough. Then my answer to them was, the other side also was a Gorkha.
र पहिले पुलिस र माओवादी भिड्दासम्म उनीहरूको लडाइँ हुँदासम्म त्यसको अलिकति लेभल अलिक तल थियो, क्याजुअलिटी पनि कम थियो, मान्छे अलिकति कम मरिरहेको थियो। मिलिट्री मोबिलाइज भएपछि मान्छे पनि धेरै मर्न थाल्यो र त्यो पछि हामी जर्नलिस्टहरूलाई पनि हामी जस्तोलाई पनि फिल्डमा गएर रिपोर्टिङ गर्न निकै गाह्रो हुन थाल्यो पहिले भन्दा, तर हामीले गरिरह्यौँ।
म प्रत्यक्ष मोर्चा भिमानमा ब्याटल लडेँ चाहिँ एकदमै गाह्रो भइरहेको थियो कि अब मान्छे मर्दाखेरि चाहिँ होइन, अब त्यो घर परिवारलाई बुझाउनु के अरे चाहिँ समाचार लिएर जाँदाखेरि भन्न कति गाह्रो, त्यो रुने आमा बाउलाई सम्हाल्न कति गाह्रो। जस्तो शहीद परिवारहरूको घरमा गएर पनि, जस्तो मर्ने मान्छेहरूको घरमा गएर पनि हामीले गीत र सङ्गीतको माध्यमबाटै उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ खुसी बनायौँ। अब चाहिँ जस्तो वर्ग दुश्मन भनेर मार्थ्यौँ हामीले चाहिँ पुलिस आर्मीहरूलाई होइन, कहिलेकाहीँ त हामी पनि मान्छे हो, कहिलेकाहीँ पग्लिन्थ्यौँ क्या हामी पनि होइन, यसरी चाहिँ नमरे हुन्थ्यो भन्ने चाहिँ त्यस्तो लाग्थ्यो।
We were in the stage of military stalemate. We couldn't win over the army, and the army also couldn't crush us.
There was growing concern internationally about the escalating and dangerous nature of the conflict. Here you have in Nepal a very radical movement that was intent on bringing down the parliamentary democratic system, getting rid of the monarchy and establishing a people's republic, a secular state, and so on. We felt in the UN that we needed to really understand what was going on and try to be helpful to the extent possible. The time I arrived on my first visit, which was in August 2003, the first step was to meet with the government officials.
I said, why not? We can involve UN because the UN is not the part of any country.
I also established telephonic contact with the Maoist leadership. The Maoist team had left Kathmandu, and so I was not able to meet with them face to face.
We thought going through the UN was better than involving any of the big powers directly.
Building trust, building personal rapport, and spending time with the different actors was really an important part of the initial efforts.
But the insurgency continued to grow. It had grown to cover almost all of Nepal. So a lot of people being killed.
As a director of the Swiss Peace Foundation, I was involved in many different conflict areas. I was active in conflict prevention and peace building. In 2000, I joined the Foreign Ministry. They asked me to check whether this is going to be a tough situation in Nepal. Switzerland had a very traditional program of development cooperation in Nepal. It started already in the 60s. We started with a program in agriculture. We had a road program to improve the roads. So it was quite a long-standing experience here in Nepal. But then when the Maoist insurgency started, Switzerland was really afraid, we thought maybe 30 years of development cooperation. Everything is going down the river now. In summer 2004, I came with my colleague to Kathmandu. When I came, the conflict was more or less triangular. There were the political parties, and there were the Maoists. And there was a major conflict between the palace and the democratic parties.
The king was meant to be a constitutional monarchy, more of a figurehead.
But he kept appointing different prime ministers, and he wanted them to solve this problem. And the political parties, they saw him as extending his reach beyond what is constitutionally allowed.
And so that put the prime minister, the political parties, squarely against the king.
Well, at that point, I think Secretary General Kofi Annan really hoped that the king would play a unifying role, to be above the political fray and bring the nation towards some kind of a consensus and a negotiated solution. So in early 2005, he wrote a letter to the king, and I was tasked with delivering the letter by hand. A general message reinforcing his views about what the role of the king should be. But the events that followed somehow were surprising to me and to others. In early 2005, Secretary General Kofi Annan wrote a letter to the king, and I was tasked with delivering the letter by hand. So I had just returned after that meeting with the king to New York, when I was sitting in my doctor's office, and I look up at the TV.
हामीबाट वर्तमान मन्त्री परिषद आजैबाट विघटन गरिबक्सेका छौं। अब गठन हुने मन्त्री परिषद हाम्रै अध्यक्षतामा हुनेछ।
Surprise and frankly dismay, because there was no hint in the conversation that we had with him about what was about to happen.
He took up the reins of power himself and began to rule directly.
मिलिट्री मोबिलाइज गर्यो, आर्मी पनि गनसहित बसेको आर्मी त्यो युनिफर्ममा हैन, अनि आर्मी ट्रुप्स नै हाम्रो अफिसमा तलपट्टि राखेको रहेछ। उनीहरूले चाहिँ सबै क्लियर गरेपछि उनीहरूले चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ उनीहरूले सेन्सर गरेपछि मात्रै त्यो चाहिँ पब्लिकेसन्सको लागि प्रिन्टिङको लागि जान पाउँथ्यो।
No, that was King's full-fledged coup. So we see that opportunity, we call upon the political parties and people, then they responded. We call them to join hands with us against the king.
The king has taken over the rule, the parliament is dissolved, so democracy is in danger, and every politician, they are keen that democracy should be restored.
So in May of that same year, the seven-party alliance was formed, a grouping of parties that was against the king.
There were 7 political parties, but the largest was Nepali Congress.
My uncle, G.P. Koirala, was the leader of Nepali Congress that time.
He was the most senior among the political leaders. It was natural that he would be made the leader of the SPA.
When I met G.P. Koirala the first time, it was in his residence. He was quite sick at that time because of a lung problem. He was a chain smoker. So I was really sitting on his bed and talking to him, which was kind of a touchy moment for me. And I thought it is good to start this discussion at this private level, a very emotional level. What I learned when I came, that there was no relationship whatsoever between him and Prachanda, the Maoist leader. We agreed that we establish a phone contact first of all. And only through this phone channel then we could really start these personal talks. He told me from the very beginning, I'm going to die only after signing a peace accord with the Maoists.
GPK almost every day used to have a telephonic conversation with Prachanda. And there was a fixed time, and in that fixed time they used to talk.
The moment they were talking, there was progress. The Nepal Transition to Peace initiative started also at that time. This was the civil society initiative.
NTTP, the Nepal Transition to Peace Process, they invited me as a peace secretary of the government and made me one of the facilitators. So NTTP in the beginning was a forum of facilitators. It was to build trust first, between Maoist and the SPA, rather than to get the agreement. The previous peace initiatives, there was a serious gap of not being able to communicate properly with trust with the rebel leaders. So when this initiative started, NTTP brought Damannath Dongana into the process, a sort of continuity of the earlier efforts.
Frequently, we brought both the parties and the Maoists are meeting to see that, the conflict does not flare up. There is still room for talks. Then we just kept on holding meetings after meeting.
They are respected people involved in the peace process. These days, nobody is talking about them, but their role is really vital.
NTTP had an office in Bhojangriha. Bhojangriha in Nepali means, in English, place to eat. So it is an old-fashioned building, remodeled for a restaurant. You can enjoy a dinner, evening music, Nepali style. There was an annex on its left side, not so used by the owner of the restaurant, which was rented by the NTTP project. Very secluded, quiet place. So in that sense, the restaurant was camouflaged to our place as well. We used to do the meeting very quietly to avoid the hype coming from media, because nobody was quite sure a particular meeting, how does it end up. We meet here on that room's table. This is a sort of historical round table where everybody is equal and one can talk to each other at any point of time. There are very small things which we tried at the time. For example, we were very careful that the serious business of presenting someone's position never started before everybody came, where they are not seen as already gossiping things which was not brought to the table. So gradually that trust building exercise was spread from we the facilitators to the Maoist and the SPA, where they could gradually talk to themselves without us, with full trust.
Several rounds of talks we used to have at different levels. I used to send his emissaries, or personally, Prachanda myself used to meet them.
GPK used to have talks with Prachanda. I used to have talks with Babu Ram regularly.
After this king's proclamation,
अब गठन हुने मन्त्री परिषद हाम्रै अध्यक्षतामा हुनेछ।
All the political parties were forced to realize till the monarchy is there in Nepal, there will always be a risk the king will stage a coup, take full power.
GPK used to say that we should work together, parliament should be reinstated, and we should go for constituent assembly election.
So we had long discussion on it. Then we agreed and we had the 12-point understanding.
The 12-point understanding was a very important document in a number of ways. It was a very strong expression of the commitment of the parties to genuine democracy. It was also a document in which the Maoists committed themselves to be part of a democratic political system. The document, it said either the UN or other reliable international organization would supervise the armies of the Maoists and the Royal Army during the Constituent Assembly election process. So it was a real opening for a peaceful end.
For me, it is a dream come true of my life. That was my conviction, that was the conclusion of my PhD thesis. So when this was put into practice, when it was bearing fruit, I was seeing with my own eyes, I was just overwhelmed.
And we convinced Maoists that after the 12-point understanding, there should be a peaceful movement.
So accordingly, in April, we jointly declared the People's Movement against the monarchy till our demands are fulfilled.
Very quickly, it escalated into the biggest movement the country has ever witnessed. It was able to mobilize almost every section of society.
It is amazing that so many people, they came in the street. Everyone was involved. They want peace and they want democracy.
People still say all the rural people flocking in the Kathmandu Valley, most of them were the Maoist cadre coming from the surrounding area.
रुखको हाँगाहरू हरियो रुख हाँगाहरू लिएर चाहिँ हिँड्ने चलन पनि थियो त्यो प्रोटेस्टको एउटा सिम्बलको रूपमा त्यो हरियो हाँगाहरू त्यो मास देखेरै मान्छे ओभरवेल्म हुने खालको सिचुएसन थियो त्यस्तो मैले कहिले पनि देखेको थिएन मेरो लाइफ टाइममा
Within 19 days, it is reached a climax.
र लास्ट आवरमा आर्मीले पनि पिपल्स मुभमेन्ट भएको थियो र आर्मीले पनि राजासँगको लोयल्टी कट गर्यो अब हामी राजाले भनेको मान्न सक्दैनौँ दमन गर्न सक्दैनौँ आफ्नो जनतालाई भनेर जब गर्यो त्यो पछि राजासँग केही पनि बाँकी रहेन
यसै घोषणा मार्फत पुनर्स्थापित गरिबक्सेका छौं
The king restored the parliament, appointed Girja Prasad Koirala as prime minister, and the supremacy of the parliament was restored.
This proclamation by the king, we are very happy that now king used the word, the sovereignty and state authority is inherent in the people of Nepal. It's the first time he said that.
But we were also very mindful that this cooperation between the Maoists and the political parties was going to be severely tested in the implementation of the 12-point understanding, because they had become allied together out of necessity in their desire to deal with the palace.
But the other thing was the king, he didn't talk of Maoist party, he didn't talk of Constitutional Assembly, he talked only the 7 parties. So that is why we didn't welcome it. They could betray us. As declared by the king, the dissolved parliament was revived. It has its first meeting. So we conveyed to the political parties and Mr. G.P. Koirala that parliament should declare the election to the Constituent Assembly.
Constituent Assembly is a sovereign body elected by the people to write a constitution. So the argument is that it would have greater legitimacy because it has been elected by the people.
Only then we accepted it and declared ceasefire.
So first step was with the army and the Maoist leadership, we had to establish a ceasefire that could be monitored. For the Maoists it was very risky. They didn't want to be seen in the city. It was not clear yet whether this is going to succeed. So that's why the leadership came to my apartment in Summit Hotel. This was my apartment there on the 4th floor in the Summit Hotel. Unfortunately, it's going to be demolished, but at that time it was an important meeting point. We came here for some secret meetings, very discreet access here behind. This was, of course, very good. Nobody knew that there is an entrance here. A delegation of the Nepalese army and 3 top shots of the Maoists. We met together with NTTP in a room in the Summit Hotel. We discussed how the ceasefire can be implemented between both sides. It's a preparation of very operational steps. The idea of demobilization, where the Maoists had to give up arms and the cantonments to bring their fighters into camps. And this was the moment when they agreed to invite UN for the monitoring of a ceasefire and then also the demobilization process.
Beyond agreeing that the UN would supervise the armies, etc., there was no agreement between the parties. The substance had to be sorted out.
The Prime Minister's office unilaterally sent a letter to UN inviting them to come here for the monitoring. The Maoists were not involved and not informed about it, and so they were quite angry as a result.
A few weeks later, the Maoists wrote this letter to the Secretary General. This is to draw your attention to the letter sent to you by the government of Nepal on 2 July 2006 and to register our strong protest and disagreement over certain crucial aspects of the letter.
The understanding was both the Nepal government and the Maoist party will jointly invite the United Nations, but they hoodwink us. The Prime Minister unilaterally sent the letter.
The substance of the letter included things that they feel had not been agreed upon, including issues like decommissioning of their weapons. And the Maoists objected to that before even the letter was written.
That is their feeling, breach of confidence. It is not intentional, unintentional.
The idea emerged during this week when UN was here that there should be a letter to UN, an official invitation, but it should be done from both sides. So there should be two identical letters, but one sent from the government and the other one sent from the Maoist side.
The hope was that a clear, unified request could go to the UN.
It was a very intensive week, a lot of discussions with both sides. The Maoists, they said, okay, we would be ready to demobilize, but also the Royal Nepalese Army, they would have to demobilize as well.
And the government side and the army itself resented the idea of being equated with the Maoist army.
And there's a lot of fear that if the Maoist army and their guns are not contained, then we'll not have free and fair elections for the Constituent Assembly.
But on the Maoist side is that there was no trust that the Nepal army would not attack them if they were to lay down their weapons.
We drafted, I think, 17 different letters as invitation. The wording was important. After another week of drafting, we finally managed to get 2 letters. So the first step was the invitation to the UN. The next step is the drafting of the comprehensive peace accord. And here, as NTTP and our side, we collaborated really very much. The Maoists insisted that there should be an interim constitution in order to establish an interim government, including the Maoists, till the elections to the Constituent Assembly.
They asked me to come and head a committee that was responsible to bring in the Maoists into the state system and integrate them into the security forces. When I accepted this responsibility, not even a single soul supported me. In fact, my colleagues from the army, they telephoned me and said, General Sharma, you fought the Maoists, the wounds are fresh, the blood is smelling even in our nose, right now. And you want to bring in those people into this army and destroy this army? I will be the first one to shoot you. This is the type of response I used to get from my own colleagues, friends, with whom I worked for 30, 40 years. But that was the reality. I chose to work for the peace. When somebody wants to work for the peace, you have to be prepared for the humiliation. It comes together. So I accepted it.
At the top level, with me, President Raj, Girija Koirala and others, we sat down for the comprehensive peace agreement. For 2-3 months we worked.
On 21st of November, there was the signing and the ceremony. It was a big event. The whole international community was there, all the political leadership, civil society.
It was a huge achievement and really a very hopeful moment for Nepal.
तो आजको यस मितिदेखि हत्या हिंसा आतंकको राजनीति समाप्त भएर मेलमिलापको राजनीतिमा हामी सबै अग्रसर भएका छौँ।
नेपाली जनताको विजय अहिले जो भएको छ त्यसलाई संस्थागत गर्न, त्यसलाई सुदृढ गर्न हामी संविधान सभासम्म जानेछौँ।
By the time around 16,000 to 17,000 people had lost their lives. The CPA brought a formal end to the 10 years of fighting. And that was the most important thing.
I'm sure I had a glass of beer after that, yeah. I was extremely happy that I was able to be here during that important period of the history of Nepal. I think it was one of the most important periods in my diplomatic life.
It was really a lesson in having a thick skin, investing in building trust and personal rapport.
Right in the beginning, I had a hope that ultimately peace and prosperity will prevail through our support to the dialogue and not through the means of guns.
When a child is born, nobody is more happy than mother. So we are the mother of the peace process. Our joy was beyond description that time.